Hey guys, I am doing a pseudo live stream today, Dr. Lisa, because the weather is not so great here in Charlotte and my recording just wouldn't connect to the live stream, but I wanted to get it in between 1 and 2 and continue on this discussion. As I said yesterday, the conversation was, we were talking about basically self-care and like how are you caring for yourself, and I was going to go through the lower 3 chakras because that's really what helps us take care in our body. And the first chakra is dealing with some security stuff, which you spoke about. You can travel down and look at yesterday's live stream. Today, as I said we're talking second chakra issues. That's the idea of our connection, our trust. I spoke a little bit to that yesterday in terms of the tying in, and the issues are when we have this fear, this first chakra, second chakra disconnect in some way, issues with sex, money, power. We have a fear with that, right? Adding to the fear of sex, money, or power in some way is somewhat problematic in our survival. Then we have our issues sometimes show up in the pelvic abdominal area, and having manifested some stress there, holding tension there. I mean, we could all, even if you're not into any of this metaphysical, yogic science, subtle body yoga kind of stuff, you can equate somebody who has TMJ and might hold in their pelvic floor. I mean, we see this all the time, clinically. You can equate that to what I'm talking about. When you have something on your mind, when you're carrying stress on your shoulders, when you are filled with grief and retracting, we tend to take postures. We tend to bring in the musculoskeletal system in a way. We do that. Why? It's not because we're thinking it out. It's because we are sensory beings and we're picking things up, and this is the way that our body manifests our emotional state and our mental state at the time in logic, being logical about things, and we take on a certain posture because no matter how much we want to say we're the, big sentient beings that we think we are here on Earth, we really are just earthlings, and we react like animals, the animals that we are in the animal kingdom. So that's what we're talking about here as well. But I'm going to be using the terminology in terms of energetics because that's just kind of who I am. And one day down the road, maybe somebody will dig up this video and realize there was somebody talking about it way before it became mainstream. Okay. So I see it in terms of the idea of being in second chakra or energetically. That fear is unresolved, and we need to, in order to heal ourselves there. So many times when I'm working with women, or even telling men or children, a lot of times definitely with pediatric constipation issues, late bedwetters, that sort of working with pediatric pelvic floor, is you can't just tell a child to fear less. Don't be afraid. Sometimes there's very valid reasons. A lot of times when we're seeing that there's been some sexual misconduct, or there's been, some abuse in a home, or some even verbally, or feeling threatened, or the kid has some underlying nutritional deficit or something, they were doing the right thing. We weren't picking it up. But in that case, I think it's easy to understand what I'm talking about. You can't just say, oh, go to sleep. There's no, animal under your bed. Fear less. What helps being a mom or a dad or somebody who cares in that situation is loving more. It's connecting more. And so we get into those energies of trust, being able to trust someone of authority. So much importance of that when I'm working with a client, even if we're just working on developing their business. Because to be perfectly honest, that's for a woman, a lot of her security. A lot of her security is in her identification as a valid professional, even and especially when her vocation of choice is motherhood. So when we're working there, working on the concept of loving more. So when we care for ourselves, we're actually loving more when we choose a different food instead of the one we want to get the experience between the end of our tongue and the back of our tongue, because that's where your taste buds end, and that's where all that pleasure and all that stuff you think you're going to have ends, at the back of your throat. So if you can get past that and love yourself more, rub on an essential oil. Clary Calm's my favorite. If you can go for a count backwards, Mel Robbins has that wonderful 5-second rule. Go look on YouTube. I have some on my Dr. Lisa YouTube. I have one of her talks, I believe, on that 5-second rule. If you can count back from 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and choose, it just gives you enough neurolinguistics, talking with your brain, the brain work, the brain science, to tell you do something different, like to motivate you enough to do something different. And that energy, that ability to trust ourselves to do something different, that's a very gut-based thing, right? So caring for ourselves in that way will help us heal ourselves with any types of tensions we're holding, or ways we're eating that bloats us, or the things we're eating that we know throws us into a blood sugar chaotic episode with our blood sugars and our stress response and our energy and our adrenals and our thyroid and our gut. All of that, I can talk very vanilla Western and rationalize all of that as being something about trusting yourself and making better choices and loving more, versus fearing that disease they just diagnosed you with, versus spending all your time thinking about how you're broken, versus saying all the horrible things and the trauma over and over of what has happened to you. That is called manifesting. That is bringing more into your life. That's a very second chakra issue. If you keep dealing with the same crap over and over in your life, it's not the universe hates you. It's that you don't have your own back. And you feel deep down you know that, because of the words you're saying, because of the stories you're saying, because of the beliefs that you have. That's a very second level. So women out there, men out there, health providers, light workers, especially those. I just had a wonderful talk coming up on episode 21. Dr. Laura Ricci, we just finished on our podcast. That'll be in about a month's time that's released, in the third week or so of June. Gosh, where are we? We were just talking about that. We were just talking about how the overlap and the intuition and all of that stuff, listening to our gut. Our gut is where so much of our disease comes from. Am I wrong? Am I wrong? Why is the emphasis on lifestyle, medicine, and food? We could change so much of our disease. Our top killers in this world, cardiovascular, cancer, diabetes, which ends up being a metabolic problem that ends up being some of these other things, such as cardiovascular and cancer, the obesity. We could change all of that if we could use some of this information. All right, guys. Talk to you tomorrow. Tomorrow we're talking about I am. The words I am, and how powerfully healing those can be, and how those deal with our ego, right? Some people have a really big ego problem, and some people have because they have a big ego problem, but it's the negative where, they're the ones that would always come into my classes and be in the yoga class, or, first very fearful of how they were going to look. And when they finally got there, they drew so much attention to themselves, even though they put themselves in the back of the room by making all the noise or being like, oh, I'm so bad at this, or this is so bad. It's like, that's what we're talking about. You're not a bad person. You just have a third chakra issue. Talk to you tomorrow about that. Bye.